What's up guys? On my last video I had a look at the XYL ARP9 gel blaster. I went over all the features, I cronied it and tested its accuracy. Now there's a second company who also makes an ARP9 gel blaster, and that's HLF. I purchased both of these myself in order to compare them against each other and see which one I prefer. Because a lot of it is the same, today I'll only be pointing out what's actually different with the HLF compared to the XYL. If you want to see a full overview of the blaster, check out my other review first. As for this comparison though, let's get started. The first thing I've noticed that's different about the two is the HLF is much easier to obtain. Multiple retailers all have the HLF in stock at the time of this video, meanwhile the XYL is out of stock everywhere I've looked. The HLF only comes with the one mag, while the XYL comes with two mags and a coupler to join them together. Remember, the mags are not cross-compatible. There's no drum mags available for the HLF yet, but some people have got creative with 3D printing and made their own. The HLF has an orange threaded muzzle tip, while the XYL has a black one. Both are a 14mm counterclockwise thread, so you can put whatever you like on there on either of them. I've discovered that both seem to have a 7.3mm barrel internal diameter, despite the description of the XYL on every retailer's website saying it's 7.5. That could explain why the earlier versions of the XYL seem to be a bit more accurate, and apparently the visual difference between the 7.5 and 7.3 is a red barrel versus this gold one. The HLF doesn't include any M-locked Picatinny rails for you to attach to the sides or bottom of the handguard, while the XYL did. The build quality of the HLF is noticeably worse than the XYL. The plastic feels a lot cheaper, there's rough and sharp edges on things like the Picatinny rail, the surface doesn't feel as smooth or solid, and there's a significant amount of flex in the HLF version, especially with the front handguard. The XYL, on the other hand, feels very solid. The charging handle of the HLF doesn't prime your mags like it does on the XYL. Although one thing going for the HLF is it doesn't have an electronic blowback, if you're not a fan of those. It's not difficult to remove on the XYL though. I've already done it on mine. It's just 2 screws with the upper receiver off. The HLF doesn't have the Mosfet, the XYL does, but it's a low quality one. So that means the HLF can run a 3S battery without the worry XYL owners have that they could burn out their Mosfet. Another difference is the HLF uses a JST connector for the battery rather than the XYL's mini Tamiya connector. The HLF doesn't seem to have as sensitive of a trigger, and I've found that on a 3S battery the HLF has about the same trigger response time on semi as the XYL has on 2S. However, when it comes to testing full auto rate of fire, the HLF on 3S almost doubles the XYL on 2S by firing 21.6 rounds per second versus 12.5. Finally, a plus for the HLF, it fires full auto faster than the XYL does. Now let's quickly test velocity though. If I disregard that first number of 212, the high was 251, low was 233 and average was 240. The XYL though had an average velocity of 277, so the HLF shot 37 FPS lower on average with the same gels. How does the HLF compare in terms of accuracy though? First I wanted to try its stock, human sized target at 30 meters. Yeah, that's pretty dreadful. If we have a look at the XYL's stock accuracy to compare, while it wasn't great either, it was still better than the HLF's. Now let's fit a thread on HopUp and see if that improves the accuracy. This one was sent to me by Alex Zamperin. I'll chuck a link to his Facebook business page in the video description. All loaded up and HopUp attached, I set out to shoot 20 more shots at the target, but then I ran into some issues.
The fuck? It's on semi.
Even with the fire selector in semi, he was firing more than one shot at a time. So in the end, I decided to fire 4 quick bursts and see where the gels went.
There you go, that's probably about 20 shots.
One of the shots hit the camera, but overall, with Alex HopUp, the HLF's accuracy was greatly improved. I'd still say the XYL with Alex HopUp was better of the two, but the improvement was a lot more dramatic on the HLF. Why is the XYL more accurate? Well, after opening both blasters up to have a look at their cylinders, the XYL has a 50% port, while the HLF has what I measured to be a 70% port. This means the HLF has a greater amount of air coming out of its barrel when fired, which I think is throwing off the accuracy of the gels. The XYL isn't perfect either though. With its 7.3mm barrel, it too has excess air coming out the barrel, but not as much. I think if you owned either of these two, it would definitely be worth adding a longer barrel, and probably going with a 7.5 rather than a 7.3. So which of these two will I be keeping? Well, they both cost me exactly the same amount at $299. The XYL has better build quality, higher velocity and better accuracy out of the box, while the HLF doesn't have a Mosfet that burns out if you go to 3S, so it does have a full auto rate of fire advantage over the XYL. I think both with some serious mods could perform about the same, but rating them on stock performance and build quality, I'm choosing the XYL. I hope you've enjoyed this comparison video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you found this information useful. That's all for now. I'll see you on the next one.